While we manage our lives during these weeks in the eclipse spin cycle, let's shift gears a bit and take a look at Mars. Mars, god of war, ruler of our masculine energy, our action, initiative, passion, self-assertion, anger, young men. The sign of Aries, your Aries natal house, the ancient ruler of Scorpio, stations retrograde on October 30th, 2022 for the rest of the year. Mars stations retrograde about every 2 years for 2 to 2.5 months. His last retrograde was in 2020 in Aries, and his last retrograde in Gemini was at the end of 2007, into the beginning of 2008. Now, Mars tells the story of the end of 2022. Mars retrograde works its magic through 3 cycles. 1. Passing in a forward motion over the degrees 8 to 25 Gemini, this is when we are introduced to the potential. September 3rd to October 30th, 2022, 2. Turning retrograde and moving backward over these same degrees, this is when we have to find our resourcefulness. We turn our attention inwards. What isn't working? October 30th, 2022 to January 12th, 2023, 3. Going direct and moving forward again over these same degrees, this final phase is the period of integration. January 12th to March 25th, 2023, Mars backward movement, from our vantage point here on Earth, is associated with times our overt actions might not be as effective / sometimes peter out, anger. It might impact our ambition, energy level, motivation, and libido. We might find ourselves dealing with unresolved conflicts, and old efforts / projects / actions we had previously left dangling can be brought back to life. It's a time to be rethinking the ways we deal with anger, the ways we go about getting what we want, the ways we assert ourselves, the ways we communicate, the ways we start. With Mars in quick-witted Gemini, words are going to be very important, as will Mercury's journey while Mars is retrograde. This transit will likely be more challenging for people with planets / points in Gemini or the other mutable signs, Virgo and Sagittarius, and people with natal squares and oppositions, and to some degree probably in conjuncts, between Mars and Mercury. And, of course, for Aries and Scorpio risings, your ruler planet is moving backward. You will feel this. It doesn't have to be a bad thing, just different. I am a Scorpio rising, and my motivation shot very high when Mars moved into Gemini in August. But as soon as he slowed to station, he has barely moved in weeks, I felt it slowly dissolve. The square to Neptune, which I have natally, too, didn't help. Venus was retrograde in Gemini during the late spring and early summer of 2020. Venus reworked 5 to 21 degrees of Gemini, and Mars is reworking 8 to 25 degrees Gemini, so almost the same degrees. Back then we had the North Node in Gemini, too. Like Mars, Venus also made multiple squares to Neptune and sextiles to Chiron. We were reevaluating who / what we love, our changing values, our need for variety, and, of course, dealing with COVID. I wrote about that here. That transit, and this upcoming one, takes us back to the Venus star point in the spring of 2012. At the end of the Gemini retrograde post, I was writing about our somewhat insane 2012. Specifically about our year with my schizophrenic brother-in-law David, who was found dead last weekend, as the moon moved over his natal Pluto / North Node exact conjunction, opposing his exact Chiron / South Node company. Little man who inspired so many to open their hearts, somewhat of a hobbit, has left a big hole in the world. Sedna will move into Gemini next year for a 40-year stay, so the importance of Gemini as duality closes out over the next decades can't be overstated. Lots of positive and challenging progress. I think maybe the most positive being the end of the feeling that something is missing. But, that's a post for another time, maybe while Mars is retrograde in Gemini. We will continue to find ourselves doing things twice and/or two things at once. Our tribal/familial energy, his story and her story, visits us through the Mars retrograde and the Neptune/Chiron aspects. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.